The rain tapped softly on the windows of Amora's sunlit apartment as she sipped her morning tea, staring out at the busy Lagos street below. It had been 3 days since Tunde left for Johannesburg, another business trip, another week of silence. She had stopped counting the days he spent away, and worse, she had stopped missing him. The version of him she used to long for had faded, replaced by a man who was always too tired, too focused, or too distant to notice the subtle shifts in her. Their marriage had grown functional, like a scheduled routine they both agreed to follow for the sake of appearances. She worked from home most days, managing her consultancy, handling brand strategy for NGOs and startups. That's how she first encountered Logan. He had emailed her after a conference she couldn't even remember attending. An American working with an education-focused NGO, Logan wanted help navigating the local market. His tone was friendly, but professional. They arranged to meet the following week at a cafe in Ikoyi. She expected a brief, formal discussion, another international executive with a clipboard and a short attention span. He wasn't. Logan was tall, with gentle eyes that searched, not scanned. He asked about her background, not in a probing way, but like someone who truly wanted to understand. He didn't speak over her, didn't interrupt. And when she talked about brand behavior in African markets, he didn't look bored. He asked follow-up questions. He listened. They had met twice more since then. Once at the NGO office, another time on a site visit to one of the schools in age. Each meeting left her unsettled, but not in a bad way. There was something unspoken building in the silences between their words. When he looked at her, it wasn't with desire exactly, but it wasn't neutral, either. That morning, as she typed out the brand audit summary for Logan's team, her phone buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. "Hey," the message read. "I know it's short notice. Any chance you're free tomorrow afternoon? I'm reviewing our weekend pitch deck and could really use your brain. Totally casual." She stared at it for a moment. He always added phrases like totally casual, as if preemptively protecting them both from any interpretation. She typed, "Sure, what time?" and hit send. When Saturday arrived, she dressed simply. Dark jeans, a cotton blouse, and the soft brown sandals Tunde had once bought her but never noticed when she wore. As she pulled up outside Logan's serviced apartment, her heartbeat was steady. She had convinced herself that this was strictly work. That nothing would happen. That she was in control. He welcomed her at the door with a warm smile and bare feet. The apartment smelled of freshly ground coffee and something spicy. She noticed a pot simmering on the stove. "Hope you don't mind," he said, nodding toward the kitchen. "I was making jollof rice. Been trying to master it. Probably ruined it, though." She laughed, stepping inside. "Let me guess, you added green peas." He looked horrified. "Is that not allowed?" "Absolutely not." They both laughed, the kind of laugh that's easy when two people know they're skirting a boundary neither is ready to name. They worked at the kitchen counter, laptops open, discussing presentation flow and market segmentation. But gradually, the distance closed. Their shoulders brushed now and then. She caught him watching her as she explained customer profiling techniques. By the time the deck was done, it was evening. The sun filtered gold across the wooden floor, and Amora found herself curled into the corner of his couch, barefoot, holding a glass of wine she hadn't planned on drinking. Logan sat opposite her, cradling his own glass, legs stretched out. "You ever wonder," he said slowly, "what your life would have been like if you chose different?" She looked at him. The room was quiet. "Every day," she said. He nodded but didn't push. "You seem like someone who holds a lot in." Amora didn't answer. She felt her throat tighten and hated that he could see it. No one had looked that closely in years. The wine warmed her fingers, but her mind was racing. She could still leave, say thank you, and walk out. But she didn't want to. She wanted to stay in the space where someone noticed the little things, like how she smiled when talking about her dreams, or how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was unsure. And in that moment, staying felt more dangerous than leaving. The following morning, Amora woke up earlier than usual. She hadn't slept much. Her thoughts kept circling around the couch, the wine, Logan's eyes, and how dangerously safe it had all felt. Nothing had happened, technically, but the silence between them before she left had been heavy, filled with something unspoken but undeniable. She kept reminding herself of that line she hadn't crossed, as if it gave her permission to feel what she felt. She was still a good woman, still faithful, still in control. But even as she went about her day, reviewing slides, responding to clients, and reheating leftover soup for lunch, her mind kept wandering back to the way he had looked at her. Not lustfully, not even flirtatiously, just openly, like he saw through the layers she had spent years building. By Monday, she had convinced herself it would fade, that she had overread everything, that the tension she felt was hers alone. But then he messaged again. Didn't get a chance to say thank you properly, Logan wrote. You really helped me pull it all together. I owe you dinner. She stared at the message, unsure whether to be flattered or afraid. It wasn't the words, it was the timing. He had waited 2 days. It was deliberate, careful, respectful. And that's what made it worse. He wasn't pushing. He was giving her space to come closer. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she finally replied, You don't owe me anything. But, dinner sounds nice. It was raining again the night they met. Not at his apartment this time, but at a quiet rooftop spot in Victoria Island he had heard about from a colleague. Candlelight danced between them on the small table, their wine glasses catching the glow like tiny lanterns. They didn't talk about work. They talked about music, childhood, regrets. He asked questions no one ever asked her, about her dreams, her fears, the version of herself she had left behind. I used to want to be a dancer, she said suddenly, laughing softly at how silly it sounded. He leaned forward, smiling. That doesn't sound silly at all. Why didn't you? She shrugged, eyes lingering on the glass. Life. Marriage. Responsibility. Tunde needed someone grounded. And who grounded you? He asked quietly. Her throat closed again. She didn't know when the silence turned intimate. Maybe it was the moment their hands brushed for the 3rd time and neither pulled away. Or maybe it was when the waiter brought dessert and Logan leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was something fragile but radiant. As they walked out together, rain still falling, Amora felt a shift. The world around her blurred, the traffic noise, the horns, the rush of tires over puddles. All she noticed was how close he was to her, how warm his presence felt. He offered to walk her to the car, umbrella over both their heads. At the door, she turned to thank him. But the words stuck when she saw his expression. I know I shouldn't, he said, his voice low. But I haven't stopped thinking about you. She felt the air pull from her lungs. Logan. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say it. And then his hand touched her cheek, gently, like a question. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull back. Her body stayed perfectly still, but everything inside her trembled. His lips brushed hers, softly, slowly, with hesitation. It lasted barely 2 seconds. But it felt like the world had tilted. She stepped back, breath shallow. I can't, she whispered. He nodded. I know. Neither moved for a long moment. The rain fell steadily between them, and all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. She got into her car and drove home in silence, wiping her lips again and again, as if trying to erase what she had just allowed. But there was no guilt. Just confusion. And a hunger she hadn't felt in years. When she got home, Tunde was on another Zoom call. She passed him in the hallway, and he gave her a distracted nod. No kiss. No question. No sense that his wife had almost lost herself to another man. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands in her lap, staring at the floor. Something had happened. Not just the kiss, but something deeper. Something inside her had shifted. And it wasn't done shifting yet. The days that followed were strange. Amora carried on with work, smiled when expected, responded to emails, and even laughed during team calls. But inside, she felt like she was walking on unfamiliar ground. Every step she took felt slightly off, like something had shifted beneath the surface of her skin and was waiting to emerge. She didn't speak to Logan. Not at first. She thought putting distance between them would help her regain control. But silence wasn't distance, It was weight. Every hour she avoided him, the desire didn't fade. It deepened. Became more layered. More complicated. One evening, just as the sun was going down, she sat at her desk staring at the pitch document they'd created together. Logan's notes still lingered in the margins, and her eyes drifted across his comments like they held more meaning than they should. Her phone buzzed again. "Logan, I'm sorry about the other night. I had no right. But I meant every word." She read it twice, then 3 more times. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't even chasing. He was simply stating how he felt. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at herself. Her reflection was calm, composed, but the woman in the glass was someone else now. Not broken. Not ruined. Just, no longer the version of herself who waited for someone else to notice her pain. She messaged back only 3 words, "Are you home?" That night, the city seemed to hold its breath. The roads were quiet, and even the air smelled different. Amora drove without music, her fingers gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do, only that she had already crossed too many lines to pretend she hadn't. Logan opened the door within seconds, as if he'd been standing behind it. He didn't smile. He just looked at her, searching her eyes for clarity. "I don't want to be rescued," she said softly. "I just want to feel something real." He stepped aside silently and let her in. There were no grand gestures. No explosive moments. Just quiet hands and quiet mouths and the steady unraveling of 2 people who had been holding back for far too long. She kissed him first. Gently. Purposefully. Her fingertips traced the edge of his jaw like she was learning something sacred. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Every motion, every breath, was its own confession. Afterward, Amora lay against his chest, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. It wasn't love. It wasn't even lust. It was something in between, tenderness carved from longing. A kind of emotional truth she hadn't tasted in years. But the moment didn't last. Before dawn, she slipped out of bed and dressed in silence. Logan stirred but didn't stop her. "Will you be okay?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Her shoes clicked softly on the hardwood as she walked to the door. Back home, the sky was still dark. Tunde was asleep, snoring lightly. She climbed into bed beside him, her body cold and strangely alert. She watched the ceiling, waiting for the guilt to arrive. It didn't. Instead, what came was clarity. She didn't regret what she'd done. She didn't feel proud of it either. It was simply a mirror, showing her what she had become and what she could no longer accept. In the morning, she made breakfast like always. Tunde scrolled through his phone, mumbling something about his afternoon meetings. He didn't ask how she slept. Didn't notice the way she avoided eye contact. He hadn't noticed her in months. Later that afternoon, she opened her journal, the one she hadn't touched in years, and began to write. "I wasn't searching for him. But when someone finally sees you, truly sees you, it's hard to keep pretending you're invisible." She paused, pen hovering over the page. "I don't know what this makes me. But I know what it makes me feel, awake." She closed the journal and slid it into the drawer. Her phone vibrated once, a message from Logan. She didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, she sat still, surrounded by the quiet hum of her own thoughts, knowing nothing would be the same again, and somehow that didn't scare her anymore.